Hello YouTubers, it's Wednesday, let's write a book. Hello YouTubers, welcome to Savage Brushstroke. I'm 1 week into my writing a book. I've been writing 2 pages a day and only on Mondays through Fridays, so I am at 10 pages, my first 10 pages of this novel. I call it Moonlight on Cobblestone. Now, this is actually a story that I've been working on for a long time. It's been in my head. I've tried to sit down and write it numerous times before, but with the added benefit of giving myself a deadline, I am now well on my way. So in the first 10 pages, of course, you want to introduce the premise of your story as well as you can, but in a book you have a much more lenient time. You just have to make sure that your first 10 pages are compelling, well written, that the sentences paint the picture that you want people to see. And of course, you should probably introduce your character. Now, I've definitely read books where you didn't find the main character for a little while, where there was a lot of action that came before the main character ever showed up on the scene. However, I tend to like to put my main character right there on the first page so people can get to know the character. But this is the interesting thing. Is your character who he's going to be, who he or she is going to be for the whole book? By this I mean, are you introducing a person who through the trials of the book will become the character, or do they show up as the character? Do they have all the nuts and bolts of the character and they're going to utilize these things? Sort of like if you picked up a Sherlock Holmes book. Sherlock Holmes is already Sherlock Holmes versus, say, Harry Potter. Harry Potter doesn't know he's Harry Potter, has to learn who he is, has to find out all these things about himself. So, do you have a character that is already established and the world around him already established and we are just entering into it, or are we being introduced? Now, in this particular case, it is a character that is already established. His name is Charlie Sierra, and he is basically a paper version of me. This gives me a lot of free way to give him memories that I have, to give him experiences that I have, and to allow him to navigate the story as I would. This gives me a little bit of a break from the creative side and say, just work on recall. So Charlie Sierra is a ghost tour guide, and what that is it's a person who walks around the streets of Savannah and tells ghost stories for a living. I did this for well over a decade, and it was a wonderful way to make a living because you meet all these interesting people, plus you get to scare total strangers. Nothing's better than that. So putting that as my main character, a man who makes his living telling ghost stories, this is a ghost story. The whole novel is about ghosts. So I'm trying to paint a picture of Savannah as the haunted place that it has notoriety as. And so sometimes this is, I think, when you're setting up a book, location becomes as important. When you think of Stephen King, you think of Maine. When you think of Anne Rice, you think of New Orleans. And that gives you this kind of feel that if you can identify a space, a place, then the stories that come and go in that space are colored by it. And so that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to establish Savannah as this haunting, mystical, and magical place. So Moonlight on Cobblestones is a story about Charlie Sierra, who is tapped by a friend of his who's in the police department to investigate a murder. Now, he's not investigating the murder, he is just filling in blanks because the person who committed the crime, who confessed to the crime, claims that a ghost made him do it. And while in most places that would just qualify him as insane, in Savannah, you have to take a second thought. At the very least, to see where that motivation came from. Maybe his ghost story is linked to the actual reason why he did it. So Charlie Sierra is pulled in only to find that there's a lot wrong in Savannah. Now, the Savage Brushstroke that I often think of with books is Mark Twain. Now, Mark Twain, as the creation of Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain is the Savage Brushstroke. Mark Twain was like a lifelong performance art piece. What we know of Mark Twain is so influential and so beautiful. He was a driving force for creativity and creation, a dreamer who was always surprised by his success. So Mark Twain, as a character, is a savage brushstroke. So if there are savage brushstrokes in the writing world that you can think of, books that really influenced you and moved you, things that you've read that really inspire you and make you want to write, and don't forget, if you want to write, write. Please leave a comment below. Tell me about your savage brushstrokes, the ones that you've seen, the ones that you appreciate, and the ones that inspire you.